I've been looking everywhere for you, Sherry. Brave little girl to leave your house in the middle of this mess. On the ground, hands behind your head.
You can't be serious.
On the ground, now.
Brian Irons is one of the most disturbed and despicable people that Claire Redfield will encounter during the events of the game Resident Evil 2. The police chief of the Raccoon City Police Department, Irons, like many city officials, had been taking bribes from the Umbrella Corporation to overlook certain misdeeds of theirs within the city, allowing the company to run wild with experimentation without any fear of investigation. What's more, Irons was known to have a violent past that likely continued into his adult life, with suspicions of murder seeming ever more plausible as we see his actions during the Raccoon City outbreak.
You better be taking me to my mom.
Absolutely.
Don't listen to him, he's full of shit.
Stop hurting her, please!
Don't tell me how to do my job.
Stop! Let me go!
The story of Brian Irons as we know it begins with his time in university. And while we don't know much about his early life, we do know that from this young age, suspicions of vile behavior would begin to surround the then young man. In university, Irons would be arrested under suspicion of 2 counts of sexual assault and would undergo a psychiatric evaluation as a result of the allegations. Unfortunately, these charges would ultimately be dropped due to a lack of evidence and his incredible academic achievements. But a penchant for violence against young women would seemingly stick with Irons throughout his entire adult life. After university, Irons would find work in the Raccoon City Police Department, and before long would impress the right people to land himself the position as the station's chief, an occupation that would put him in close relations with a major benefactor of the city, the Umbrella Corporation. Like with most of Raccoon's high-ranking officials, however, this relationship between the two parties would soon turn corrupt. Umbrella bribing the newly appointed police chief to look the other way on any potential allegations levied at the corporation in exchange for money and lavish parties with other corrupt city staples. In addition to his position as police chief, Umbrella would also install Irons as the director at the Raccoon City Orphanage, using the position as both a way to make Irons seem more likable to the public through work with those in need, as well as a way to secure test subjects for the twisted experiments being carried out in their underground nest facility. Through these manipulative measures and puff pieces paid for in the local media, Umbrella would make Irons into Raccoon City's superhero, a man who lived for the people of the city and was doing everything in his power to protect them as best he could. However, behind all these falsities that Umbrella had conjured, Brian Irons was about as far away from his public persona as he could be.
Isn't she beautiful? I was about to stuff her.
Chief Irons?
You know him?
With the money that he earned through his illicit activities with Umbrella, Irons would often indulge in his hobbies. The most tame of those hobbies would be his love of the arts. In fact, he would be instrumental in purchasing an old art museum and renovating it into what would become the RPD station. He was also an avid hunter and a massive taxidermy enthusiast, adorning his office with many exotic animals that he himself had stuffed for decoration. It would also be this hobby that would seemingly translate its skills into something much more disturbing. Although never entirely confirmed, there is evidence that has suggested that even before the Raccoon City destruction incident, Irons had already escalated from being a suspected sexual predator into a full-fledged murderer. In the months leading up to the outbreak, 8 separate women would each go missing from their lives, ranging from the ages of 18 to 23. And each being described as having beautiful blonde hair, a description that perfectly matches a certain type of woman that we would soon learn Irons fancies. Even more than that, however, is the writings of one of the police chief's secretaries, who fears for her life after she finds out about his secret back room, and what he has hidden away inside. Regardless of the truth behind these allegations, however, the strain of Irons' falsified life in the media and the truth of his misdeeds would soon come to blows as an accident at Umbrella's Arclay laboratory would cause several gruesome deaths on the outskirts of the city. Unable to sweep these killings under the rug, Irons would be forced to send the pride of his police force, the STARS unit, up into the mountains to investigate, resulting in their discovery of the Spencer Mansion and the abominations that Umbrella had been concocting there. With tales of these horrors, several survivors would return to report their findings, only for Irons to disband STARS and use his influence to decry them as delusional at the suggestion of Dr. William Birkin. Of course, there would also be those who questioned the official line, like Ben Bertolucci, but for the most part, it was another successful campaign of lies that would cover up for the failures of Umbrella yet again. However, it wouldn't take long for those lies to finally come crashing down around him, as in just a few short months after the mansion incident, another Umbrella failure would cause catastrophe for Irons, as well as the city of Raccoon. In September of 1998, an incident near Umbrella's underground nest facility would cause a wide-scale viral outbreak that would affect all of Raccoon City. Zombies would begin roaming the streets, and the RPD would become something of a stronghold to fend off the ensuing onslaught. However, while the rest of the officers within the building's walls wanted to help the citizens that came to seek refuge there, Irons had something very different in mind. Either due to the stress of the situation, the thought that he might have become infected, or perhaps just finally seeing the opportunity, Irons gave up the facade that he'd carried for so long. He began by sowing confusion amongst the ranks of the officers, giving them orders that didn't quite make sense for the situation, hoping to bring every last person in Raccoon down with him. And once enough of them had fallen to the zombies, Irons himself would start his own rampage, killing a fellow officer named Ed and reveling in his agony before setting his sights on yet another beautiful blonde young woman, this time the mayor's daughter, Catherine Warren. Catherine had been placed under Irons' care and protective custody, but as he became more deranged, she would flee into the city, Irons tracking her down, enjoying the thrill of the hunt. Eventually, he would catch the poor young woman, and in an act of unabashed cruelty, would plan on stuffing her corpse like the animals in his office. Before he could get to it though, he first wanted to kidnap Birkin's daughter Sherry, finding her in the RPD and dragging her back to the orphanage, while he prepared for his macabre taxidermy of Catherine. Brian Irons is one of the most unsettling and vile people in all of Raccoon City. Even before the viral outbreak, his actions were despicable, but after it, they became all-out disturbed. Irons was more of a monster than the zombies that roamed the streets, more of a monster than the lickers that hunted the RPD's halls. A true villain, and a man that deserved the truly painful demise that he would ultimately be given.
Your fault.
What?
Took too long.
What happened? Get off me! Oh my god! Jesus Christ!